Okay, so let me head right into our State of Open edX talk. What you see here are all the lovely people that helped to put together this conference, as well as people that work in the Open edX community in general, working for edX. You guys want to stand up just so people can identify you? Berkay, Roberta, Matt, Clayton. Okay. I'm going to breeze through these very quickly because we have a whole team of people. Obviously, we have our leadership team. You probably know most of these people, but Adam, Mark, Ed, do you want to stand up? All right. We have several teams here that you may want to talk about certain things that they're doing engineering and product-wise, starting with our business to consumer learners and educators, our business to business people, the core kind of DevOps team, and our architecture team. So when you see these people in the hallway, you may want to ask them what they're doing and how we can all work together. Thanks. And then on our product team. Incidentally, there will be a product BOF either today or tomorrow that you can, where you can talk to them about what's happening product-wise. And then finally, data science and accessibility. Education services. Okay, so now we get to the fun stuff that everyone likes to see every year where we talk about progress. And you've already seen the numbers from Anant showing massive growth over just in the past year. And so I want to build on top of that and kind of show you some other things. You've already seen the chart that shows the exponential growth just from this past year and the number of courses and sites and how much of an increase that is. I think last year was the first time that Open edX sites had equaled the number of, sorry, let me rephrase that. The number of Open edX learners and courses had equaled that of edX.org. And now we've seen where that trend has continued, and we now have a case where Open edX sites and courses exceed, the number of learners exceed those on edX.org. We expect that to continue, especially as certain sites based on Open edX continue to accelerate. But this is as a community guy, this chart speaks to what I like to highlight in any community, and that is who's contributing, who's participating, who makes up the Open edX community. And if you look at the organizations who have been contributing to the Open edX community, those that have signed our contributor license agreement, we've now reached up to 50 contributing organizations. That's a great figure, and frankly, I think this sets us apart from any other organization in the online learning space. I don't think you'll see any other community with this level of engagement that we have. And this doesn't even get into the hundreds of people that have contributed as individuals to the Open edX community. I want to call out a few things that have been happening in the community over the past year, individuals I wanted to commend for their work. The first is around Dockerization and building around Docker. You can see here Regis Bemo and Samuel Pakud, and my sincere apologies if I just butchered your names. I'm sure you'll tell me later how to actually pronounce it correctly. But they have been instrumental in creating Docker-based images to make it easier for people to download and use. You know, great software is only truly great if you can actually make use of it. And we want to make it more usable and accessible for everyone. And finally, another individual I want to call out is Lawrence McDaniel. He's been writing some great blog posts about getting started with Open edX. If these three people could stand up. There's Lawrence. There's someone. Thank you. And finally, I want to talk about the organizations that have been contributing code to the Open edX platform. Once again, OpenCraft beat last year's number. Last year they had 70. This year they had 96 pull requests that were merged. So props to them. You can see a list of other organizations that have contributed code to the code base this year. On the university side, MIT had just a hair more than Stanford as far as pull requests merged, but I'm sure Stanford can eclipse them next year. So, thanks. So notable things that have been happening. You know, I've been very impressed with how much Microsoft has been engaged. I did not know how much they were engaged until I started here in February. but look for a contribution from them in the area of OAuth scopes, which will make it easier to use OpenEdX. AppSembler has led the charge on a lighter weight analytics and reporting plugin called Figures. Harvard is leading the way with a block store contribution, working with OpenCraft. And Xuetong is another organization I want to call out in particular because when you think of OpenEdX-based learning platforms that are exploding in growth, they are certainly top of mind because they have 1,300 courses and over 10 million learners. So it's a testament to the power of community growth and what we're achieving here. Thanks. I now want to turn it over to our COO, Adam Medros. Adam, would you like to come up here? He's going to tell you about how he came to be at edX and what he's doing.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Adam. I joined edX 6 months ago. I previously spent the last 13 years in the travel industry. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because at TripAdvisor, what I helped build was a marketplace between travel suppliers and consumers. And I see a lot of parallels between what we're building at edX, between ultimately consumers, learners, and educators. What's different about my experience in travel industry versus edX is the reason we're here today. We're also building a platform, and all of you are helping us build that platform. As Jarmark reminded me, I do have an MBA. That's often a cautionary tale for a lot of people, but I'm told I'm one of the good ones. We'll see whether that plays out or not. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the themes that I'm thinking about when I think about what we're going to work on at edX over the next couple of years. And really, there are 5 themes right now that we're focusing on the edX side: discovery, programs, revenue, B2B enterprise work, and architecture. Discovery is all about helping users find the right courses, get to the course that's right for them. There's a lot of work we can do there around tagging courses, around making search and navigation easier for consumers. Solving this problem that was mentioned before about, is this the right course for me? How do you choose across all the courses that are available? There's a lot of focus on programs and degrees. MicroMasters, professional certificates, master's programs. Those are all things we're investing in heavily in the coming year. Certainly, revenue generation is top of mind for a lot of people, not just to make edX sustainable, but to make our partners sustainable, and ultimately to be able to fund all the work we want to build into the platform. Enterprise, as noted by Professor Holland, B2B certainly has invested heavily. Businesses have invested heavily in adopting MOOC courses for their training, and there's lots of opportunity there. But the thing that's probably most important to the people in this room is this point about architecture. Ultimately, we want to help build with you the world's leading open source digital learning platform. And so investing in architecture is going to enable us over the next year to make features easier to build, faster to build, and more robust and at scale. This is what you'll hear about over the next few days, so we're excited that you're here. We're excited that you're continuing to work on the OpenEdX platform, and we're excited that you hopefully will join us in the shared vision of building this incredible platform. I'm going to turn it over to Mark Haseltine, who's our Chief Product Officer, and he's going to talk a little bit about the product. There you go.
Everyone. So it was my 4th OpenEdX conference, so I'm excited to be here. It's kind of amazing how much it's grown over the years. And in a new role this year, so Chief Product Officer is new to edX, and it's new to me, so I want to talk a little bit about what that means. But over the next 15, 20 minutes or so, we're going to cover the product delivery organization at edX. We're going to do, at a very high level, what's coming in Hawthorne and beyond. And we're going to talk a little bit about that architecture theme that Adam mentioned, because it's really important to our future. So I want to start with why a product organization and what is it at edX. So we're calling it a product delivery organization. The delivery, word delivery is important. It's about getting code to the OpenEdX code base as quickly as possible. And so what we've done is we've combined 4 independent orgs, so engineering, product management, user experience, and data science and analytics, into one team. And so the intent there really is speed. We want to start to remove some organizational barriers, get the process more smooth, and really make the handoffs cleaner. And all of these orgs are really essential to getting code to the code base. So why a chief product officer? So again, for the people in this room, I think the key takeaway there is there's just a single wringable neck, if you're familiar with that term, or the buck stops with me. There's no one else to blame, right? So if you have questions about how stuff is getting delivered, how quickly, problems, issues, like I'm the last stop. So I'm also really trying to encourage this focus on customers and customers in a broad sense. So enterprises, educators, and learners, and supporting this purposeful evolution of the platform. So architecture is really key to making this all work together. So before we dive into the Hawthorne release, I wanted to talk a little bit about our product philosophy. Hopefully people have seen this slide before. It hasn't changed much, but we're trying to do a bunch of things at once here, but the way to really think about it is, we're really trying to reach new learners, right? And help them drive the outcomes that they would like to achieve. We just had a great talk about what some of those objectives are, but those matter to us, while we're supporting educators to deliver these courses at scale and moving towards a sustainable model overall. So as we go through Hawthorne, you'll see these different themes repeated again and again. And as you know, our Open edX, we do named releases, or some of you may not know, but last year, Ginkgo was released just before the Open edX conference. We're in the middle of the Hawthorne release now. I would say we're neck deep in it. So that's coming soon, and planning Ironwood, which is the next one early next year. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Marco Morales, a member of our product management team. He's going to walk through the Hawthorne release.
Hi, everyone. So I've lost my voice a little bit. So what remains of it we'll use for the next 8 or so minutes to talk about these 4 themes that Mark highlighted in Hawthorne. So we can't cover all the things that were done in Hawthorne. It's a pretty large release. Those details and things you'll be able to find us afterwards and talk to us about any questions you may have. But we'll start with reach. So the thing to highlight here is today, over half of our learners find us on edX.org, at least, via mobile devices. So one of the things we did in Hawthorne was really simplify the way that we do our front-end styling to enable us to make our web experience responsive. So a lot of learners are still finding us on the web, but through their mobile devices. And so that was a big lift for us and a really big change for helping find new learners, since, again, most of those learners are finding us on mobile devices. A second half of this sort of reach equation has to do with big investments on the mobile experience, on the applications themselves. So big changes to the navigation overall of the application, of the course experience, streamlining really basic actions like finding new courses or bulk downloading videos all at once, helping you sort of learn on the go and streamline that experience, while also building behind the scenes some additional tools to make it easier to add more languages for any of you who are actually running your own instances of the Open edX mobile apps. Moving on to sort of driving learner outcomes and what that means to us, there's so many things we could talk about and cover inside the course experience, but one thing we wanted to highlight are the changes that came into learner navigation and the visualization of progress. So this is a pretty major contribution for us, and it was spearheaded by OpenCraft, who worked with edX on sort of the architecture and sort of the plan for how to get this completion API on the platform. What we've landed and merged in Hawthorne is a first pass at helping visualize this progress, but the really exciting thing is all the other forms of progress that it can enable us to explore and try out and build into the experience now. Another thing to talk about is what happens outside of the course experience. So we have heard a couple times today about the role of these courses in how they can help provide evidence of your learning to people, whether they be employers or additional credit providers. So we're working right now actively on a digital sort of modern form of a transcript, helping you take a credential like a MicroMaster's credential and share it or send it for the purposes of an application or a follow-on credit pathway, again, to those credit partners or employers. Shifting gears a little bit to talk about educators, there are a lot of parts of the experience that we could cover, but one thing to highlight in particular was an investment that actually landed in Ginkgo around redoing the way we store and maintain and cache grades. So those changes on the architecture side have enabled us to add grade information in various places in the platform. A number of reports that you can download now have student grade information. There are edX Insight learner views that expose credit and grade information. So this, again, just another example of how across different parts of the platform you see these downstream benefits from those investments. The other big thing to highlight has to do with video and asset management. So videos and files, so files and uploads that you include as resources in your course, are big drivers of costs in the MOOC authoring space. In particular, video is a big cost driver. So any work we can do to help streamline the authoring, configuration, and management of this part of the platform, we think will help authors focus on building higher quality courses. So it's now the case that through this investment and work that you can more easily sort of reference existing files and uploads and add them in and drop them into your course experience as you're authoring. That you can reference existing videos you've already uploaded instead of copy and pasting IDs, as was the case for previous releases. One of the other reasons we want to highlight this one is that this is both an example of a big investment on the authoring side, but also behind the scenes, the team at edX has worked on libraries of React components that can give us accessible components to hopefully, again, further speed up the way in which we can make changes like this in the future. The last area we wanted to cover was that sort of moving towards a sustainable model for the platform. So 2 things to highlight on the commerce side of things. The first is bundled program purchases. So for those of you who have enabled programs on your instances, this means that you can allow learners to buy all the courses that are inside a program at once, optionally with a discount. So this is for particular learners who are sort of opting into higher levels of commitment up front and are sort of able to do that with some sort of benefits to their bottom line or cost. Group purchases are one of the ways that we've started to expose commerce functionality for groups or businesses or enterprises. So you can buy a number of seats all at once and distribute those enrollment codes to learners as you wish. So building on the coupon code functionality that we have in the platform. The other thing we want to talk about has to do with a thing you've heard a number of times today around supporting enterprise learners. Rather than sort of diving into all the details of what we've done on that team or as part of that effort, wanted to take a step back and talk about how supporting enterprise learners impacts all different phases of the platform. So what does supporting Open edX for enterprises mean across all 4 of these areas? And there are representatives, I should note, from the enterprise team here today who can answer a lot more detailed questions that I'm going to cover here. But to start, enterprise learning means that an enterprise learner can use their existing learning management platform that their employer may have and see learning pathways curated by their organization that may meet their organizational learning needs or the learning needs of their role and their growth trajectory as an employee there. So seeing that on their own catalogs and systems is the first step. That's what discovery means for enterprise. The next step is streamlining the way that learners can go from discovering those courses to the learning experience. So providing single sign-on to let these enterprise learners go directly in through the platform, making enrollment, making reimbursement, making sort of the commerce side more streamlined and easier for those learners, getting them as quickly as possible into the learning experience. There are a number of other improvements in the future we see for enterprises in the learning space. You can imagine enterprise learners collaborating with other enterprise learners from their own company on specific projects or seeing specific content that makes sense for them from their corporation standpoint, but doesn't necessarily apply to the wider MOOC setting. Finally, with learner data consent, enterprises would be able to see the data from these learners and understand how their investment in their employee learning is having an impact on their progress, on their learning goals, which again may be tied to things that they see on their own internal systems. So a lot of work to be done in the future here. We're excited about all the people in the conference here that are interested in this sort of use case. But one last thing I'll cover is there are some things we've been doing on particularly the discovery and access side, providing enterprise branded onboardings, and enabling sort of data from an enterprise standpoint to go back through that data consent. And again, some of the sort of catalog and discovery things we talked about. So a lot more to come here, especially on the data and reporting side next. But with that, I will hand it back over to Mark.
Thanks, Marco. So as Adam mentioned, we're at edX really organizing ourselves around these themes, and the product organization is no different. So I won't kind of reset them, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about like what does a theme mean to us, and to me it's about focus. So it's a well-defined area that is important to our customers that we are defining success criteria around. And importantly, assigning dedicated resources to come up with solutions to meet that success criteria. So really, clear goals, focus on doing things well. And, one of the themes that I'm most excited about is the architecture theme. So I have asked our principal architect, Nimisha, to come up and talk a little bit about how we're thinking about that over the next year and point you at some resources that you can use here at the conference to find out more. Nimisha?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. So we heard from Anant vision about 2022 and high goals for that. We heard from Fiona a humbling perspective on that, and the yin and yang provides actually a very pragmatic way of thinking about how can we actually achieve and succeed for Open edX, for our enterprises and our global institutions, but most importantly, for our learners. Now, these are high goals. We can achieve them, yes, they seem high and they're hard, and there's a humbling perspective on it, but they are possible. As students of edX architecture, let's take a look at this from the perspective of the past, the current, and the future. If you look at our platform, yes, we have 5 years of a legacy platform now that has enabled us to achieve those 35 million learners, those 18,000 courses worldwide, and those 1,500 sites globally. So that is a great achievement and something that definitely we should give ourselves a pat on the back for. So, and how did we achieve that? It is because of our current edX platform. But looking at it from the perspective of what is there in our platform that might be holding us back from achieving where we want to go in 2022. From that perspective, historically, we haven't been doing a great job in deprecating and removing the old that is no longer needed for the future. So eliminating that from our platform are things that will allow us to manage our platform to where we want to go. Manage the cost and the cognitive load in understanding our platform and the support that we need to get where we want to. From that perspective, we are looking at, keep an eye out for OEPs. OEPs are Open edX proposals. They are our way of documenting architecturally significant decisions that we are making about our platform. Decisions around best practices, decisions around processes, decisions around the features and the architectures and the designs. So there will be OEPs around deprecation. Let's go ahead and remove the things that we don't need. There will be OEPs around feature toggles. Feature toggles are multiple branches that you create temporarily, but eventually we want to get rid of the branches that are no longer needed. These are all very important things for us to be able to keep our platform streamlined as a very efficient engine for what we need in the future. So that's all legacy management. Now, if you think about currently on the platform, and what we need, how can we make our platform enable us to make the enhancements that we need to do? What are the features that we need to add to the platform? There, currently, yes, we have some things, some limitations that we need to make sure that we add to the platform. We want to have extensions so that people can use APIs and add plugins to the platform rather than trying to go in and trying to modify, make changes. Let people add those on. We want to be able to do that efficiently. As an open edX community as well, it allows you to make changes to our platform, customize it for your own needs without always necessarily pushing them upstream to the core. So these are very important. The other thing is boundaries, having clear lines and abstractions to allow you to understand where one thing ends, the other thing begins. That allows us to have a more comprehensive understanding of our platform and figure out where to draw those lines. So domain-driven design is something that we've been talking a lot about internally at edX. We want to share that with you on tomorrow's talk on the future directions of architecture. There's a breakout session where we'll talk a little bit more about domain-driven design and how that can lead into the microservices that we need for a more scalable architecture in the future. And today, later today, there will be a talk by Ari talking about splitting of the front end from the back end. And that will enable front end developers to move more quickly without needing to make changes to the back end. And using React and technology such as that to be able to enable that. So these are all things, once again, keep an eye out for open edX proposals which will illustrate some of these things, as well as talk to the edX team and come to and listen to these architecture talks. The future directions of open edX architecture tomorrow, later today, state open edX front end. And then the birds of a feather on the product roadmap, I believe that's also today, happening later today with the product team, so you get to learn more about that. And Nick from our team will talk about the analytics work that he's been doing. So given all that, hopefully that will provide us a way to get to a practical place where we want to go for the platform. And then it will enable us to do what we want to do for the next generation of the features that would enable things like adaptive learning, things that would allow us to customize and personalize pathways for our learners, make it so that learners can efficiently engage in our platform. They can have the metacognition that they need so they can understand about the things that they do not know. And there's a lot, not talked about space repetition. This all comes in the category of adaptive learning. And we're working on, with the Open edX community and trying to figure out what are those APIs and those integrations that are needed to enable adaptive learning on our platform. And then there's also conversations that are happening about how do we open up how we are storing our content today, and can we enable more content sharing and content reuse? Can we make it so that the composition of content is more flexible and it's not always tied to courses, but it can be tied to a modular way of combining content and so forth. And so for that, there will be birds of a feather on adaptive learning. At the Dev Summit on Friday, there will be talks about what the pet name that we're using for the content repository is Blockstore right now, so you'll hear more about Blockstore. And so if you come on Friday to the Dev Summit, the OpenCraft team will talk about that. And lastly, open edX proposals. Those are a means of documenting this, and you'll learn a lot more about that. We're looking forward to the Open edX community to review those Open edX proposals that we provide, but also contribute your own, provide your design ideas, and we can work together on this. So with this triple perspective of the legacy and our platform. So managing the legacy, enabling, enhancing our platform, we can leap to the future that we want to go to. And this is something that we definitely will work with the Open edX community. Your collaboration is definitely needed to help us get there. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Berkay Baykal. Oh, thank you. Berkay is the director of Open edX business, and he's going to talk about, well, he's done some really great, unique marketing analysis of Open edX, and I hope you enjoy his talk.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, I was just doing the math. I've been with edX 7.5 months now, and I would say that I represent the marketing and business side for Open edX, and that shouldn't scare you off. I'm here to collaborate with you guys on value creation, not necessarily value capture. So I also have an MBA degree. Just to prove that, I put some numbers out there. What I want to do first is actually take an outside to inside look and bring you the dialogue that's happening outside of our community. I mean, there's a market out there for learning management systems, and learning management systems, traditional and continue to be emphasizing administrative use cases. It's a $7 billion market by 2020, and I've seen this number, by the way, inflated up to $16 billion by some companies. But on average, analysts are actually pointing out to $7 billion market with a 24 to 25% compounded annual growth rate, which is basically, if you cap between 2016 and 2020, that's the kind of growth that we are all going to enjoy and see. Core of that is in education, the three cores of it in enterprise, which shouldn't be a surprising factor. And some other interesting statistics about LMS is that organizations have plenty of it. In higher ed, that's not the case. Usually, maybe you will see 2 or 3, but in enterprises, 8, 12, 15, and I've seen 22 in one organization of different LMSs being used. In general, users don't like it, and they don't perceive it as a good platform. The user interface and user experience is pretty bad, and there's a big churn out there. There's consolidation because of the high number of LMSs, as well as the demands that the users have. I mean, we have a generation coming here that grew up with Facebook, and their expectations about user interface and user experience is a lot more than what it used to be. So market is actively also trying to define what an LMS is, and we as a community actually have the responsibility and ability to lead that discussion. I would like to challenge everybody, just like Anand challenged us, to collaborate and create a platform that will be the platform of choice for learning. Well, there are a lot of surveys about what the expectation of learners are from the kind of platforms that we have, and I thought I should just distill that in and add my kind of spin to it. I mean, we live in an environment where your thermostat actually tries to know who you are and what you prefer, right? So that kind of expectation translates to any kind of platform out there. The user and the learner actually would like we would like that platform actually to know us. We would like to do some feedback on gaps that we have, and the platform should help us when we need to learn something new, when we need a refresher. I mean, many years ago, actually, I didn't need a refresher on probability theory because we had a chipset that was failing with certain probabilities, and we had many of those. There will be, things happening in your life where you want to go and refresh what you learned in the past. And learn in time of need. I mean, more and more we actually live and work in project teams with cross-functional project teams. So we need to speak the same language, and maybe we have an assignment that cuts across disciplines. You want to go to this platform and pick and choose and learn content from many disciplines. Well, we want this platform to be a virtual assistant, right? I mean, Alexa talks to us. We can actually ask Alexa to play us the music that we want, and how about a recommendation system for this platform, and also help us, through the learning process in terms of giving a notification when we need to deliver something or when a deadline is approaching. And we want this to be a resource library. I mean, We used to like put our books in a library. We don't have those anymore. Why not transform this platform into something where we can annotate the content we actually learned and also put them in a special location where we know this is the kind of stuff that we covered through this platform. And let's go back to what we said, which is there is a big debate going on out there in terms of defining what an LMS is. LMS is not a new concept. It has been here for 2 decades, and traditionally it was in the enterprise all about compliance, and in the higher ed it was all about administrative use cases, right? And there came, you know, just like Fiona was telling us, the MOOC year in 2011 and 12, market doesn't talk about the MOOC platforms at all because there's only one product out there, right? No other MOOC platform actually makes their software available to a community like we do. And they define themselves as being learner-centric compared to an LMS. Like lately, people actually use another definition, which is learning platform. This is considered to be a continuation of what LMS is. Well, why don't we expand on what we had with LMSs and include learner focus and surround the LMS with a lot of tools to enhance the learning experience? Well, then the next concept people throw out there is learning experience platform, because then engagement is the key in defining this kind of product category. So learning in the process of doing something, using artificial intelligence, AR, VR technologies. And kind of like aside from that, there are other markets where people talk about games. You know, if you want to talk about some numbers out there, there's an $8 billion market. Social learning is another concept, and personalizing learning is another market definition and a platform. And these look like adjacent to the path in terms of defining LMS and the discourse in the market that's taking place in terms of redefining it. And just to join the party, I actually created my own acronym, and what I define as what the LMS should transform into as LEAP, which is Learning Experience and Assessment Platform. I mean, assessment is a big chunk of the learning experience, and not raising that up to a level where it's conceptually part of how we define the products, to me, is a mistake. And I would like the LEAP to pull in from games, social learning, and personalized learning, and make it something that's more complementary, more complete in terms of providing learning experiences to users, learners. And how I look at the product in terms of its evolution, looking at the functionality that it provides, I think there are 4 big chunks of things that we can talk about for the core of the product. 1, we have content. Second, we actually manage the identity of the learner and we profile the learner. The third is the experience database. As the learner actually interacts with the content, we learn about them and their experience, and we capture that. All this needs to be bundled with AI so that actually we can serve the learner better. What will AI do? Well, to an author, it will help us meta-take the data so we make it more useful. Learner experiences, we are trying to leverage that actually to tie our LMS, our system LEAP, into adaptive engine so that we can personalize the content. And identity management will be an interesting concept for this community so that we can actually combine and federate all the open edX instances in the world where the content and the learner actually can float across these instances. The product itself is not complete without a large set of tools. And right now, the state of the art in terms of integration of these tools is to use LTI, which doesn't necessarily lend itself to a great user experience. So case-by-case basis, we are going to actually publish and work on standardized APIs with the technology partners, with the vendors out there. There will be discussion board, proctoring, video conferencing, and tools to annotate the content on your device of choice. There are a lot of online resources out there that's not part of our platform, and we would like to be able to make them more useful. And we would like a way of designing learning experiences that is capable of leveraging the new technology like AR, VR, games themselves, or the mobile devices. And not to forget, this whole product actually has to be part of an institution. We have to find easier ways of integrating with whether this is a student information system or an enterprise ERP system in better ways. Here's something that I would like to share with you. I mean, we've been working on a new OpenEdX website that will have a marketing phase. And our goal here is basically to create awareness and grow the community. It will have a very modern look. We're at the wireframing stage, and this is kind of like a very early on rendering of how it will look like. And like everybody else did here, I'm going to just reiterate the same message. Let's make the platform of choice for learning. We are here and ready and available for collaboration. Let's move this platform forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Berkay. We have about 5 to 10 minutes, actually 10 minutes, until lunchtime. I promise you I won't keep you between your food any longer than we have to, so we're going to go through this. But I think there are two basic themes for this conference. One was 5 years of OpenEdX. I don't know how many of you are aware, but on Friday, June 1st, it will have been 5 years since we first published OpenEdX live in an open source repository on GitHub. That's 5 years. And I think it's important to understand where we've been so we can kind of see better about where we're going. In those 5 years, we've accomplished quite a lot, but as we've seen today, there's still much to do. So when we talk about the OpenEdX community and how we're coming together to make something that's greater than the sum of its parts, the question is, how do we do that? What are the next 5 years going to look like? How are we going to accomplish the goals that we've set out to reach? I didn't want Fiona to be alone in controversial slides today, so I thought I would post kind of what I see as a snapshot of what our governance looks like today. If you kind of look at what this slide means, we're kind of talking about, when I came on board 4 months ago, I was kind of thinking about where does OpenEdX stand in the pantheon of open source communities and projects? And as I took a look around, I kind of saw things like Drupal, WordPress, perhaps even MongoDB, things where you have a core community, a core bit of code that's managed and governed by the parent vendor or company that originated that project. But then you've got much more beyond that. When you go beyond the core code, you've got an astounding number of developers, individuals, and contributing companies who are making a lot of things outside of the core platform that make it really special and unique and drive it forward. And in the past, as Nimisha mentioned, we may not have always been on top of that piece of it, but I can assure you we have guaranteed we have devoted a lot of time over the last 6 months and certainly going forward the rest of the year and into the future, a lot of time and effort around getting that middle piece, the plugins and extensions right, making sure the APIs are extensible and reusable, making sure they're easy for people to consume, but also build on top of, so that we can adequately support the massive growth that's happening on the plugins and extension side. And when you look at that piece, it's owned and governed by whoever creates the code. On the left, if you look at the core platform, it's, you sign a contributor agreement, you contribute your code to OpenEdX, and it either gets accepted or rejected. But that middle piece, that's up to the community to define. And certainly when you go over to the right side on the commercial ecosystem that's building around OpenEdX, and it's a substantial commercial ecosystem, as you can see from the people who are here today, that stuff is all kind of up to you to define and grow and make larger. And my job is to enable and empower you to do more with that, to make it so it all works together in some sort of cohesive way. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone who has questions about kind of the governance model and where we're going with that. I know there may be questions from people in the audience, so I'll be happy to take those later. there are any number of ways to contribute to the Open edX community and project and ecosystem. I just want to go over a couple here. First of all, one thing we really want to do is we want to understand what is the total footprint of Open edX. What are the total number of users? What are they using it for? And those are things that, if we can, working with you, I'm hoping we can get better data about that. Certainly the first step in that is making sure that you have the Powered by Open edX logo so that we can count you among the list of sites that we have constantly running. But there are other ways. I mentioned the Slack channel earlier. Lots of good channels that you want to be a part of and participate in. An easy way for first-time contributors to make their impact or mark on an open source community is to do it with translations. We are clients of TransFX, which is a translation service. It's something that you can use to translate strings and contribute back to the community. It's a great first way to get your feet wet when it comes to contributing. But there are other ways, like right here at this conference. There is a table to the left of the registration table where you can sign up for Birds of a Feather sessions. That's a great way to hear what community members are doing and ways that you can participate. And then that last item there is we have on Friday, it's not part of the official program, but there's a developer summit on Friday where we're going to be talking about what are the projects that we're working on over the next year. We want to hear what you are working on, and we want you to know what we're working on so we can get together and share more going forward and, again, accomplish the goals that we set out to do. But then I want to kind of end on the second major theme of the conference, and that is the future of education is open source. And what I mean by that is about 13 years ago, I wrote an article called There Is No Open Source Community. The main thrust of that article was that open source was something that was taking over the technology world because of economic trends. And so this theme here kind of builds on that, but it adds kind of a moral component to it. This is the first time I've worked for an organization with a true social mission. And so when you think about the future of education as open source, it's not just that open source process is taking over the education industry, although I think it will. It's more like we're not just creating online tools and services for people to consume education, although we do that and we do it well. It's more about because we enable and empower people to take the code and to do what they want with it, we are enabling you to create new learners, but those learners can then become educators. And because we have everything in the open, those educators can become builders. We don't know the twists and turns that online education are going to take over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So we have to be prepared for an eventuality that we don't know. This is a way to do that. There are hundreds of thousands of use cases around the world that we don't know about, we can't prepare for. But because we have an open source platform that's truly collaborative, that everyone in this room contributes to, you have the ability to take this platform and apply it to things that we don't even know are going to happen or are already happening. So when I say the future of education is open source, I want everyone who's here to remember why we're here, what our mission is, what our goal is, and let's work together and create something that is far greater than the sum of its parts. Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to, so we have, for the reception this evening, is sponsored by Microsoft, and there is a representative from Microsoft who's going to come up here to the podium and give a short, brief talk about what they're doing, right? Excellent. Here you go. What's that? Oh. Oh, you want to join the vote?
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of Microsoft, I'm really proud to represent Microsoft and welcome all of you to the Open edX conference. And I want to lay out a couple of things from a Microsoft perspective. Two things that Microsoft is bringing to the table in terms of Open edX and to the edX community is innovation in the form of learning and innovation to the Open edX platform. Microsoft has been a key partner with edX. We started about 3 years ago in the 6 years journey of edX. We started with about 5 courses, or less than 10 courses in 2015. And today we are about 180 plus courses on edX, participating on the MOOC platform. Our vision is basically shared with edX, where we want to basically democratize learning and bring learning to the masses. In that shared vision with MicroMasters, Microsoft also has the Microsoft Professional Program, where we are sort of bringing skilling and education to professionals. And in that, we've basically released, in our first journey, we released the Microsoft program for data science. And now we have about 8 courses, all the way from bringing entry-level software development all the way to AI. That's something that we're going to be releasing soon. It's an entire program on artificial intelligence. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our Open edX partners and Open edX extenders. We started last year with about 1 pilot program with 4 install base of about 4 Open edX sites, and today we have an upwards of 160 sites, which is based on the numbers, we are contributing to about 10% of the Open edX ecosystem, and Microsoft is proud to present in that. The other things that we're bringing to the table is also contribution to the Open edX platform in terms of the OAuth that some of my partners and friends who are represented here will share in the session today and also tomorrow. So we have lightning talks where we sort of will share our vision there. The other thing we're also bringing up from an innovation perspective is the grades API, an ability to have real-time API back to your sponsors or to your publishers based on your Open edX installation. So those are the 2 things I want to cover, and I also want to thank our edX partners, and I also want to thank the Open edX community and partners that we work with in a mutually beneficial relationship to say that we couldn't have achieved this without your cooperation. And from a Microsoft perspective, the one thing I want to lay out is Microsoft is committed to the Open edX platform and to edX, where we'll continue to bring in courses and also continue to contribute to the Open edX platform as such. Thanks. And we look forward to seeing you at the reception.